Imagine you're standing outside. It's a normal day, sun in the sky, birds in the trees, the smell of rain in the air. And then the sky turns black. Not at night. In the middle of the day. The temperature drops 20 degrees in 72 hours. Then it keeps dropping. The rain becomes acid. The crops die. The animals disappear. And it doesn't stop for 6 years. That's not a movie. That's not a story someone made up. That actually happened, 74,000 years ago. And every single human alive on Earth today, descended from the people who survived it. Pause. Beat. Here's the part that should terrify you. Before it happened, there were hundreds of thousands of us. After, scientists believe there may have been fewer than 10,000 humans left alive on the entire planet. We almost didn't make it. This is the story of what happened. And how we survived. In 1993, a geneticist named Lynn Jord was staring at human DNA data, and something didn't add up. When you trace human genetic diversity, you'd expect millions of years of branching, billions of tiny variations built up over generations. But the data showed something shocking. At a certain point, human genetic diversity almost completely collapses. Like a tree with thousands of branches, suddenly reduced to just a few. Scientists call this a population bottleneck. And the timing pointed to one event. The eruption of the Toba supervolcano in what is now Sumatra, Indonesia. To understand how big this was, let's compare. Mount St. Helens, the famous 1980 eruption that killed 57 people and devastated 230 square miles of forest, released 1 cubic kilometer of ash. Toba released 2,800 cubic kilometers. That's 2,800 times bigger. It's the largest volcanic eruption in the last 2 million years of Earth's history. The explosion was heard, if anyone was close enough to hear anything, from 5,000 miles away. A column of ash and debris shot 50 kilometers into the atmosphere. And then the wind carried it. A layer of ash, 6 inches deep, blanketed all of South Asia. Researchers have found Toba ash as far away as East Africa, 6,000 miles from the eruption site. But the ash wasn't even the most dangerous part. When a volcano erupts at that scale, it pumps billions of tons of sulfur dioxide into the upper atmosphere. Up there, it combines with water vapor and forms tiny reflective droplets. They spread across the entire planet. And they block sunlight. Scientists estimate global temperatures dropped between 3 to 10 degrees Celsius. That might not sound like much. But here's some context. The difference between today's climate and the last ice age, when glaciers covered most of North America, is only about 5 degrees Celsius. Toba didn't just cool the planet. It may have triggered a 1,000-year deep freeze. Forests collapsed. Grasslands turned to dust. Animals starved. The food chain, from the bottom up, began to collapse. And humans, who were already struggling, already being hunted by cave lions, saber-tooths, giant hyenas, were now facing starvation on top of everything else. Archaeological records from this period go almost completely silent. Tools, gone. Campsites, gone. Human presence, almost entirely erased from the fossil record. For roughly 1,000 years after Toba, it's like humanity just stopped. Let's put this in perspective. There are 8 billion people on Earth right now. In the United States alone, there are 340 million people. New York City has 8 million. The scientific consensus, based on mitochondrial DNA analysis, suggests that after Toba, the entire human breeding population may have dropped to somewhere between 3,000 and 10,000 individuals. Not 10,000 people in one place. 10,000 people, scattered across an entire continent. Isolated. Starving. With no way to know if anyone else was even still alive. For context, that's roughly the population of a small town. Except instead of living in the same zip code, They were separated by hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles of dying landscape. And every single one of the 8 billion people alive today is descended from that tiny, broken group of survivors. Pause. Let silence do the work. We are all cousins. Much closer than we think. Every human alive today shares a common ancestor from roughly this period. We are, genetically, one of the least diverse large mammals on Earth. A study of chimpanzees found more genetic diversity within a single troop of chimps than exists across all 8 billion humans on the planet. So the real question is, how? How did any of us make it through? The answer comes from an unlikely place, the coast of South Africa. At a site called Pinnacle Point, carved into sea cliffs overlooking the Indian Ocean, archaeologists discovered something remarkable. Evidence of humans doing something no species had ever done before. They were eating shellfish. That sounds simple. But think about what it means. The forests were dead. The megafauna was dying. The grasslands were barren. But the ocean, even during a volcanic winter, still had food. These humans had figured out how to pivot. When their food source disappeared, they didn't disappear with it. They walked to the coast and found a new one. But it wasn't just the food. At Pinnacle Point, researchers also found the earliest known use of pigment, red ochre, ground and mixed, likely used to mark bodies or signal group identity. They found heat-treated stone tools, a process that requires planning, fire control, and knowledge passed between generations. In the middle of the worst catastrophe in human history, our ancestors were making art. They were innovating. There's also evidence from East Africa, at sites in Kenya and Ethiopia, of humans maintaining long-distance trade networks during this period. Obsidian, a volcanic glass used for sharp tools, found hundreds of miles from its source. Which means people were traveling. Communicating. Sharing resources across vast distances. When everything collapsed, human connection didn't. About 60,000 to 70,000 years ago, somewhere between 5,000 and 15,000 years after Toba, something remarkable happened. Humans left Africa. Not a few scouts. A migration. Groups of humans began moving along the southern coast of Asia, through what is now India and Southeast Asia, eventually reaching Australia. And then, in the most improbable expansion in the history of life on Earth, they spread to every continent except Antarctica. In 50,000 years, a species that had nearly been wiped out colonized the entire planet. Think about what had to happen for that to be possible. After Toba, every human alive had essentially been stress-tested. The ones who survived were the ones who could adapt fastest. Who could change what they ate. Change where they lived. Change how they cooperated. Toba didn't just almost kill us. It may have selected for the very traits that made us unstoppable. The creativity. The flexibility. The social bonding. The ability to look at a dying world and say, okay, what else can we eat? Okay, where else can we go? Okay, how do we keep each other alive until this is over? Here's what I keep thinking about. Somewhere in Africa, or on the coast of the Indian Ocean, 74,000 years ago, there was a small group of people huddled around a fire. The sky above them was the wrong color. The world around them was dying. Half the people they'd known were probably already gone. And they had no idea, none, that they would survive. They had no idea that their grandchildren's grandchildren would walk into Europe, into Asia, into Australia. That 74,000 years later, 8 billion of their descendants would be here. They just kept going. Because that's what we do. Every apex predator we faced, extinct. Every ice age, survived. Every volcano, every plague, every catastrophe the Earth has thrown at this fragile, slow, mostly hairless species with flat teeth and useless nails. We're still here. And maybe that's the most human thing of all. Not that we're the strongest, or the fastest, or the most fearsome thing on this planet. But that when the sky turns black and the world goes cold. We walk to the coast, figure out how to eat shellfish. And we keep each other alive.